Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Bad Boys for Life. And so what Bad Boys for Life is essentially about is, of course, we center on the characters of Mike Lowrey and Marcus Bennett. However, they're a little bit more older now and a little bit more wiser. Mike Lowrey, he's still very much trying to be the badass and trying to forward his legacy, while Marcus Bennett is very much on the path where he's thinking about retiring. He really isn't sure if he wants to do this anymore. However, after a new threat emerges, both of them realize that they have to at least have one last ride together and have to do what they can to take down this new threat. So, Bad Boys for Life, I wasn't really that excited for this film. Going into it, I really did not know too much about the Bad Boys films, but I did watch for the first time both Bad Boys films before this one, and needless to say, I'm not really a fan of this franchise at all. The first one is a decent, average, very disposable film. It starts off kind of fun. It's got some really great chemistry between its two leads, but it's way too long. It gets very annoying after a while, and just not really much to say about that one at all. And then the second one, I think, is even more obnoxious. There's so many ideas for what they could have done in that second one, but instead, it's just so hyperactive. There's, like, action going on every 2 seconds. There's a lot of offensive, just, like, misogynistic jokes in that movie, which we've come to expect from Michael Bay films before. And basically every Michael Bay trope that you can think of are very present in these movies, which makes it very hard to watch them. They're not bad movies necessarily, they're just not action films that I think were really utilized all that well. So obviously going into this film, I really did not have many expectations for it at all. The only thing I knew is that Michael Bay was not coming back, so I had a little bit more hope besides that. You know, I had a little bit more hope that maybe this could deliver in a way that the other ones didn't. But still, the fact that it was January and the fact that this film has taken so long to come out is not usually a very good sign. However, I have to say that it's actually very much worth the wait, because this is easily, I know we're only in the beginning of the year, but this is easily already one of the biggest surprises of the entire year. I had a really good time with this film. There's a lot that I really did love about it. I don't love it overall or anything, but for what it is, I think it's much better than it could have been for sure. And we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And look, I'll just say right off the bat, that has never been the problem with this series. Even when this series was so over the top, it's never been the fault of the cast. And just like the first two, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence have fantastic chemistry here. They do some really great work here. They really anchor this entire film. However, I think because of the fact that they actually are working with better directors, these two really get to shine. Specifically, Will Smith. Martin Lawrence has always been the standout in terms of comedy. You know, he's been a lot of fun with things like that. But this movie really gives Will Smith a chance to show his range. It's one of his best performances he's given in quite a bit, honestly. I really loved what he did in this movie. The film actually goes pretty deep into who Mike Lowrey is and, you know, what he wants to do and things like that. But you also get to see, you know, what happens when his legacy is kind of threatened and what this really does to him. His whole kind of world is shaken up in that way. And I thought he did some really fantastic work in this movie. I was very impressed by Will Smith here, and just seeing the amount of depth that they give him, I was very impressed by it. And then Martin Lawrence as well also does a fantastic job here. Still a lot of fun in the movie, still has some absolutely hysterical lines, but again, there's just more depth given to these two. There's more for them to do in this movie, so because of that, they're able to stick out a lot more, and we really do see just how great of a pairing that these two really are, and I think the movie's worth watching alone just to see these two interacting again, because they just have such amazing chemistry, and that is absolutely still the case here. You could be, you know, like 18 year, I think it's been like 18 years or something like that, and that gap doesn't really show at all. These two really did get right back into the roles, and I truly do think have never been better than they are in this movie, and easily the best thing about it. However, I have to say the rest of the cast is also really good here. A lot of them get a lot of great work. The three new characters in Alexander Ludwig, Vanessa Hudgens, and Charles Melton, respectively, are all really good. I was very worried that they were going to be really annoying and that they were going to be the low point of this film. And they start off and you're kind of worried, but as it goes on, they actually are a lot of fun. And I really liked what they did with them. Alexander Ludwig, I think, is definitely the big standout of the three. He has a really great gag where, like, he is someone who is very much you know, someone that overreacts to a lot of stuff. He's got some, like, therapy issues and things like that. And I just thought he was a very fun character. I really liked what they ended up doing with him. Joe Pantoliano as well. They give him a lot more to do here as well. He's not just the guy that's, like, barking orders at them. He actually does have a legitimate role in this movie. He kind of serves as a mentor to both of them. And you really do get to see the friendship that these three have, which is something that you really didn't get to see in the other two movies. And I just thought they gave him a lot more stuff to do here, which I was very impressed by. So I really liked what he ended up doing here. Even the villains in this movie, I would say, Kate Del Costello, and especially when it comes to Jacob Scipio, are really good in this movie. They're both really good, and that's something you cannot say about the other Bad Boys films. The other Bad Boys films, they're just over-the-top cartoons, basically. Here, they actually do feel like real people. Here, you actually do fear the menace in them. You actually are kind of scared of these guys, and they did a really great job of that. All of the acting here is great in this movie. I don't really think there's, like, a weak link in terms of, like, the cast here, and that's something that I did not think I was going to be able to say going in this film. Everyone really, you could tell, was enjoying what they were doing here. Everyone really is a great addition, and if this is the cast moving forward for a Bad Boys film, I would honestly be down for it because I really did like pretty much everyone here. But now we have to get to the directing and the writing because, oh my god, is this such an amazing improvement. I mean, the directing here by both Adil Arbi and Bilall Fallah, sorry if I'm pronouncing their names wrong respectively, they both did a really great job with the directing here. These are not directors that I'm awfully familiar with, but after this film, I definitely want to see more from them because to me, it feels like what they did is they looked at the first two films and they looked at the people like me that weren't really fans of them. Yes, they do cater to the ones that are fans because there are direct references of those two films. One especially that I thought was actually really clever and fun and I didn't think would work in a million years for me, but it actually works quite well in this movie. But what they did even better is that while the film does retain the fun tone that the first two films had, they dive a lot more into these characters. The film actually does get a lot more serious than you're expecting, and I really appreciated them doing that here. It feels like they took the aspects that people were frustrated by in the first two films and they built on it and they were able to craft something that was legitimately really good here. And I was very impressed by their directing with this film and I want to see them come back. I really do. I want to see them be the, guiding voices of this franchise. I really do want to see them do more here because I feel like they're just starting to show their potential here. I feel like they're just getting started in terms of delivery, and I really loved what they were able to do here. Their directing was pretty fantastic in this movie, and what they had to do is not at all easy, but it's kind of similar to Bumblebee, where they're able to take the things that people were impressed by in the first two films, marginally, and be able to really deliver on them and expand upon those things, and it really just makes for a much better film overall. But the screenplay is really what I want to talk about here, because that's the thing that I was very surprised about with this movie, because my biggest issue with these films have been, while I've enjoyed the chemistry between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, I've never really felt like they've given us the time to dive into these characters. Well, this film does. This film gets a lot deeper into them than I was expecting, especially when it comes to our main character, who this really is Mike Lowry's film. Even though Martin Lawrence has always kind of been like the main guy, this is really really Will Smith's film, and I really appreciate what we get into Mike Lowrey, because this is a guy who, he's always been unstoppable. He believes that nothing can hurt him, and really, without spoiling too much, the new threat that emerges starts to threaten that. It starts to wane on him. It starts to cause a lot of damage throughout his life, and he really starts to contemplate, you know, do I actually have this perfect legacy? Can I actually move forward? Is there something else that I should be doing? There's a talk between him and Joe Pantoliano especially, where I was like, holy shit, I was not expecting this film to, like, dive into something like this, and it really surprised me. I thought they did a really good job with that, and really do get into the fact that this guy is kind of in over his head. He just always feels things are going to go his way. He never really feels like anything is really on the line for him, and I thought they did a really great job with that. And then for Marcus Burnett, this is a guy that just is a lot more filled with wisdom. He's seen a lot more, and because of the things that he's seen in the past, that's why he ultimately is making the decision that he is. And I'm very happy that they took in the direction they did, because out of the few ideas I liked in the Bad Boys films, the one that intrigued me the most is Marcus Burnett wanting to go into retirement. Well, this film finally gets to dive into that. We finally get to see why Marcus is doing that. You know, he has a family that needs to protect, and you feel it. You feel that he is frustrated. You feel that he just doesn't want to do this anymore. There's a scene, especially with him and you know, Mike, and I was like, holy shit, why am I liking this as much as I am? Why are they going this deep into this? Like, I was not expecting them to do that, and it just made for a much better film overall. And yes, this film is still a lot of fun. I definitely do want to stress that there's a really great gag, especially involving how terrible of a driver Marcus is, and every time they came back to it, I actually found it really funny. There's a lot of jokes in here that I was laughing quite hard at. In the first two movies, there were barely any. There were some jokes that might have gotten a chuckle out of me, but for the most part, I just found them really obnoxious and over the top. Here, they actually gave them funny things to say. I actually was enjoying it just because this time around, they recognized what worked about their chemistry. They recognized what works about their humor, and as a result, we get a film that actually is a lot of fun, and I thought they did a really good job with that while also incorporating some really good character elements. And for the other characters, I can still say the same thing. Like I said, Joe Pantoliano, there's a lot more of him as sort of like a mentor figure to these two. You see him really giving them very good advice, and I really liked what they did with his character for sure, and I definitely really appreciate that. And even the new characters from this place they're working with called Ammo didn't annoy me. You can see that these guys look up to these two. They see them as legends, and because that they feel like they have a lot to live up to, and you really do see them throughout the film trying to do what they can to live up to that legacy, and I really did appreciate the three of them in the film quite a bit. But also, like I said, much better this time around are the villains. They are a major improvement in this movie, and thank God for that, because easily I think the worst thing about the first two, besides Michael Bay's directing, were the villains. They were just so cartoony and stupid, and oh my god, I did not like them at all. They almost felt like they weren't even that important. Here, they have way more of a narrative purpose. There is a much bigger reason for why they're doing what they're doing. They're not just doing it because they want to take over the world, or they want to take down this organization or something. Like, there's actually a really good personal reason in there, and because of that, you feel every sense of what they're doing, and I thought they did a really great job because that they're that much more threatening, and that's something else this movie really understands. Both of these villains are great. Both of them are very well fleshed out, and they're definitely one of the best things about this movie. In fact, you know that they're great where when we cut back to them, I wasn't bored. I wasn't like, oh no, these guys again. I actually was really liking what they were doing with them, and I thought they took them in a very surprising direction that I really wasn't expecting, but it just made the film that much better, and I really did appreciate that here for sure. So yeah, the writing here is really solid. There's a lot of stuff this film does really well. It dives a lot deeper into these characters, and I think that definitely it's easily the best screenplay of this franchise to date. The cinematography here is also really good, although I will say, for those who are fans of the Bad Boys films, if you're expecting like the hyperactive violence, you're gonna get that, but not as often as you think you would. For me, this is not a complaint because I feel like this was a film that used the action as a crutch rather than it did as something that generally needed to be there. They used it as a way to mask you into liking it. And yes, the first two films had some impressive action set pieces, I guess, but because they were so consistent, none of them stuck out. Here, it's the opposite. They used them, but sparingly. They don't use it constantly like you would expect them to. And so because of that, the action sequences stick out a lot more here. There's a really thrilling sequence with this car chase that I really enjoyed. There's this great rooftop chase as well that I thought was really good. And the climax especially was a lot grislier than I was expecting. It actually goes really, it got actually really intense for me. And I was really kind of on the edge of my seat during this climax. And the fact that I can say that during a Bad Boys film, much, let alone the third movie, says a lot about what they did with this film, and I thought the cinematography was really great here. The score I really did enjoy as well. It gave you that, like I said, sort of hopeless feel that the film has throughout, and the editing. I thought this film was actually really well paced. I don't really agree with the people who say, oh, this film went on too long. I thought it was actually really well paced. There weren't really any scenes that were dragging for me. I was pretty much into it the entire time, and that's not something that I really was expecting to say. So again, there's a lot to really love about this film, but is this film like amazing? Is this something you need to rush out and see immediately? No, I do think there are a few things that do bog it down overall. First off being that while I did appreciate the three ammo guys, I thought they were actually a lot of fun. They give stuff to both Alexander Ludwig and Charles Melton, but they don't really give anything, surprisingly, to Vanessa Hudgens. There's not really much of anything there, and that was very surprising. She's great in the movie. She's a lot of fun. But really, at the end of the day, I can't tell you a lot about her character. And I do think this is something where if they make a Bad Boys 4, this is something that they need to explore. They need to dive more into these three characters because while I enjoyed them, I felt like there could have been some more narrative heft there, and there wasn't. And that was a little disappointing to me. Vanessa Hudgens, like I said, especially, I just saw a lot more potential in her character, and I think they could have done a little bit better of a job with that. Also, there is a forced romance in this film between Will Smith and this other character that, while I enjoyed, I thought that the film relied on a little bit too much, and I think they could have done a better job with that. And then really my only other complaint in this movie is a bit of a nitpick. There is a huge event that happens, and it really shocked me. I was not expecting them to go in the direction that they did, and I thought, wow, this is actually really ballsy. And it was ballsy, and it's not like they, undo it or something. It happens, and they don't really ever talk about it again, and that was a little bit disappointing because I thought they had an opportunity to go a lot deeper into this than they did. They really could have spent a little bit more time diving into this, but they didn't, and that was a little bit disappointing for me. I think they could have done a bit more there, just because of how shocking of a turn this really was. I really was not expecting them to take this direction, and they did, and I thought it just made the film that much better. But overall, considering how little I cared about this franchise, the fact that I actually do have some complaints, the fact that I do think there were some things they could have, that there were some things that had a lot of potential, tells you how much better of a film this really is. Bad Boys for Life is the kind of film that I didn't know this series was capable of. I always knew there was potential in this series, but I never thought that they would really deliver on it. And I have to say, I think they finally have something good here. And I know they're teasing that this is going to be the third one, but I'm hearing that they're developing a fourth one and things like that, and I really do hope that this becomes like the next Fast and Furious or something, where they're able to resurrect this franchise. They're able to reignite what made it so good in the first place. Even though me personally, I never really thought there was anything that great about the first two, they're taking what people love and they're expanding on it. They still have the fun action there. The chemistry between the two actors is still very very much there, but it's more dived into in this movie. The characters especially, there's more depth given to them. There's more care put into that. It's funnier than the first two movies. The villains especially are a lot better. They got a really great new team. There's just a lot to really enjoy about this film overall. And for a January movie, it's far better than I think it had any right to be whatsoever. It's not a film you need to rush out and see immediately, but I think if you want to see a really, really well done sequel that finally starts pointing this direction in a promising, in a promising direction, I think this is very much a film to gravitate to. I had a really good time with Bad Boys for Life overall, and I'm going to give it a B. I never thought I'd say here and say that this is the best film, this is the first, like, good film of the decade, but here we are. I legitimately really enjoyed this one. I really do hope you guys go out and support it because they really do have something great here, and I really do hope that they're able to capitalize on it because I really do think they can take this series in a really exciting direction. I think this is really kind of just the beginning, so I hope they're able to do that, but either way, guys, in my review of Bad Boys for Life, let me know what you guys saw this movie overall, leave your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.